Shalom, and forgive me because I'm just using the scriptures as a backdrop. This here is what I wrote earlier, and I'll read it to you, but I had no intention whatsoever to make another video this soon. And I was sitting here because I've been cut off from the internet since my last video pretty much, and I had no access to the outside world due to what one thought was retaliation. But it's really not retaliation if one doesn't do something first. And I wanted to clarify that. But because this is my first day and my new home, I'll call it, though it's just an apartment, and I have always detested being in an apartment, so this is where our Kings brought me to. And that was before the fire, November 4th of 2018, when the house my brother David had really did well and gave me to live in, got burned down. And it's been a journey, with friends of mine I thought were friends. I actually thought was a brother and sister, though they did deny baptism and such. I was very patient with them because they got me out of jail. I spoke of this in previous videos where I was put in jail because I billed a judge for contempt of his own courtroom, and in retaliation the judge called what I did retaliation and got another judge that had no jurisdiction over it to put me in jail on a bond that was way above. It was 3 times as much. $30,000 bond was put on me, though I did no crime other than billing a judge for contempt. Billing the man, not the judge, please. There's a difference. You bill the man, you don't bill the office of the man. You bill the man for corruption of his own office, and that's what I did. And I was put in jail and starved for 44 days. La-di-la-di-la. You'll be able to see it, if you look at my other videos. And the reason I'm only using the scriptures here for a backdrop is because I thought that after I did my last video, I'd have me a beer, and I did. And I don't like to read from the scriptures except for personally to myself. I don't mind sitting around with friends and such, and we'll go through scriptures together, even with a beer. It doesn't matter. I mean, what are you supposed to do during the feast when you're commanded to bring, wine or strong drink, including, some beers and such? There's nothing wrong with these things, but as one to proclaim the truth and come forth and say, hey, look, this is what the scripture says, kind of thing, like up there on a pulpit or whatever, one should not be drinking. Okay? It's just something shouldn't be done. I'm just having a heart-to-heart with you right here. And, I was thrown into jail, and who I thought was my brother and my sister, they bailed me out, okay? And I had a $30,000 bond on me, and they put up $2,000. A man from Colorado came down and bailed me out because he couldn't believe. That's the reason why he came down there, that they were doing what, my friend at the time, my brother at the time, had proclaimed to him of the malnutrition, the mistreatment, and everything else of me. And he bailed me out. So I didn't want to really, I was more or less pleading with the world, hey, look, wake up, look what they're doing to people in jail. I mean, I billed the jailer, and I billed, the senators and the governor, all the way up to the President of the United States, Obama at the time. I billed them all. I charged them for their hand because it was done by the use of federal dollars, which, get mixed with public funds. So you can't really separate the two. And I billed all the way up there, for I think it was $10 per second that I was held, first abducted unlawfully at a court case I was supposed to be at. They knew I'd be there, and the bailiff didn't even have the warrant with him, which I asked, was arrested, put in jail, and starved for 44 days in solitary confinement. And, that's a whole different story. But this man and his wife got me out. Right after, I was 44 days starved. Another day or two, I don't think I'd have been alive. But they got me out because I knew our king had used them. And I told them, I says, hey, instead of the $2,000 you got me out on, and it wasn't right away. I told them, somehow I will pay you, okay? Because I had nothing. They had burned my house, my church down, my domicile, while I was in jail. And that's why this brother got me out, and I had $5,000 in the house that I had from my inheritance. And they burned it up, and when I had asked my ex about it, she says, why do you keep saying I burned your house down? It wasn't me. They did, because they wanted to destroy the evidence. And it's in an email that, I sent off to over 80 different law enforcement agencies, governmental agencies, news agencies, and I never got one reply back about the things that was done to me. Okay, so Enoch wrote about these things, and of course my friends also laughed. But later on, I had made the agreement with them because she was always wanting a brick house. She was always wanting a brick house, and I thought, well, that's okay. And I made the deal. I said, look, I owe you $2,000 for, bailing me out. I says, I'll tell you what. When we take these into court, so that when it's brought out that I was actually abducted, kidnapped basically, and I was murdered, as the book of Enoch also spoke of, then, when they find out that according to man's law, that the justice of the peace, who only had jurisdiction up to a Class C misdemeanor, non-jailable Class C misdemeanor concerning traffic, he put me in jail on a warrant for a third-degree felony, and it was for retaliation. He didn't have jurisdiction up to that. Now, I wrote the man, John Weeks, a bill, a contractual agreement that he owed me. I charged him that he owed me, at that time, was a little over $1 million. Now, this justice of the peace, that man acting as a corrupt judge in his official capacity, he got the district attorney and his sidekick to write out a complaint saying that contracts are nonsense, and that common law is nonsense, and that me stating that I am a man is nonsense. That was why I was arrested and put into jail. But between the district judge, he was a circuit judge of the state of Texas, okay, out of Abilene, Coleman, and Callahan County, John Weeks, I'm the one that billed him according to common law, which is contracts. And contracts make the law, if you know anything about it. Okay, so anyway, he had me arrested by saying that contracts are nonsense. That's why they tried to murder me. I billed them for over $1 million, and they got a hold of Steve Odom. He was the Justice of the Peace judge, and like I say, he only had up to a Class C misdemeanor that he could even hear. He had jurisdiction or authority over hearing. I mean, a lot of times you hear about these people, you know, going out of some law enforcement arm's jurisdiction, and they can't do nothing then. Okay? Well, because it was out of this judge's jurisdiction, they had no right to arrest me, because this judge could not even issue a warrant for a felony if he could only hear up to a Class C traffic misdemeanor. Now, I wrote over 80 law enforcement agencies and such, as I said. So then, with that knowledge intertwined, and the man that got me out of the jail just before I was dead and brought me into his house, because mine had been burned down shortly after to destroy the evidence that I had in there. And then knowing the knowledge that she always wanted a brick home and he never provided it for her, I said, I'll tell you what, when we get these people to court, thinking the laws of the United States of America, with President Trump saying that we are built on the laws of the land, and yet I've not been able to access the laws of the land. Nobody will even listen. But I told her, you know, this is so, you know, open and closed case, to see that this man only had a jurisdiction up to hearing a matter in controversy of up to $10,000. Now, I issued John Weeks, the judge, the bill. I charged him, the authorities, you know, a little over $1 million. So $10,000 was the limit for Steve Odom, who acted as the Justice of the Peace judge. And he thought that, I don't know, maybe because I asked so much and it was out of his jurisdiction, that he only could hear up to $10,000, which means he could only post a bond for up to $10,000. He posted a bond for $30,000 on me. So it's out of his jurisdiction. There's no way this could stand anywhere lawfully or legally. And I wrote over 80 different governmental and law enforcement and news agencies. And I sent them out 3 notices saying, hey, look, if you hear of a commission of a felony, a known felony, and you don't report it, you're held liable. So there's over 88 agencies here, all guilty of breaking the federal laws, and yet I'm the only one that still yet suffers. Okay? So anyway, just to sum this up, I was watching current events because of my being cut off from communication, which I'm going to bring up. I want y'all to be able to sit here as a judge in the matter to determine whether or not I actually stood as a brother in the faith. Okay? And I want you to judge it. I'll bring out my side of the story, which is the truth. And the other side, he's welcome to bring out as well. But I doubt he will. Okay? Because he can't. You know, I mean, the things I'll explain to you in this and why I did it, I want you as a believer. I'm your brother. I'm not going to lie to you. Okay? And that's what actually has taken place with me, and why I was deceived. Well, not in his words, so naive, but I was deceived thinking he was a brother. So I'm going to ask you to judge on the actions taken and such. And my inner thoughts I will reveal. But I was sitting there catching up on the time from when he cut my Ethernet cable till right now, when I finally got internet again here last night. But I was catching up on news, even found out that Abilene, Texas had a tornado in it, and that's where I've been living for the last almost 40 years, was in Abilene. In that area, I know a lot of people, and a tornado went through, and I couldn't reach out to anybody to condole them or anything if I knew them. It's because I was cut off because of this false vengeance. And as I was catching up on the news, it was like these thoughts come in my head, and I say, well, I've got to write them down so I could bring a video. Okay, and like I said, I had no intent because I did have a beer, and I wrote this down, but then I got a phone call afterwards, and I'll explain that in the next video. But it said here, and it's the same thing. I don't know if you can see it or not here, because I don't see my face or the picture, but I showed it at the very beginning of the video, and it says, this is what came to me. It's like, brothers don't retaliate. You don't. Brothers don't retaliate. They believe that our king will pay back what is due. Okay? If you disagree with that, you got to judge against me. Our way of life, those that believe the truth and hold on to it, that walk as our king walks, and we follow him wherever he goes, we forgive. You know a tree by its fruit. Non-believers retaliate and then accuse the believer, though they, the non-believers, think what they will do is right. Scripture says that they will even kill you for thought that they will be doing their little God a service. Vilest of contenders, those ones are. They're the vilest of contenders because you love them, man, And it's like, wow, to see what they were actually always like, but putting on these false errors, to try to deceive even the very elect. It doesn't work, and it doesn't come out well. For thought that they will be doing their little God a service. Vilest of contenders, our fallen brothers become. Soon as I wrote this, as soon as I wrote it down, I had no intention to get on here and make another video today, and that's why I had a beer, and I'm not reading from the background that's showed right there on my computer screen. I get a phone call. It's Sabbath, okay? I just wrote or gave the video about it being the 6th Sabbath, okay? And accusing me of stealing all their beans. He divided the groceries. She tells him, after I had spoke on the phone with her a bit, and I explained to her the situation, that, I went out to the kitchen and I said, look, this here pile here my niece gave to me. You and I don't have no investment in it, so we ain't dividing this. And, well, what is it? I said, well, rice and beans and lentils. Beans? Well, we got beans, don't we? I said, well, I don't know. Well, what do you mean you don't know? You're the cook. And I started hearing F words and all kinds of stuff. And I said, look, man, I'll tell you what. If you're not going to stand here and help me divide what's ours, because we each pay 50% of it each, I said, I'll be more than glad to go to my room and lock myself in it and let you divide the food as you see fit. Well, okay. So I did so. And he had all the food on the counter for the next morning. And I heard here yesterday, before I moved in here, it was 10 in the morning, her complaining about everything on the counters and this and that, and he came and knocked on my door and said, can you come in here and get rid of your portion and this and that? And I'm like, okay. So I come right out, and I went out, and I went back and I said, hey, him, I didn't quite say that. I said his name, okay, and I'm not going to say it here, but I said, can you show me what it is? And he came out and he said, all of this is yours. I already took mine, which I know he had to, because there were certain pastas that they like most that were gone, and the ones they don't like the most, I was given, and I was thankful for it, okay? I said nothing about it. And he says, all of this here, he says, you just get it out. That's yours. I want it out. And I said, okay, all right. So I packaged it all up. So after I wrote the first part there, well, I get the phone call. All right. Now he divided it, and I asked him, what is it that's mine? Okay, because I wanted to make sure. And he said, all this on the counters. And the rest of the cupboards were bare, so he took it all off. And I noticed there were, we had a bunch of tuna fish. I didn't get one can. He likes tuna. Okay, I didn't get one can. I got 2 cans of salmon that we had got. There was no tuna. And the things that he didn't like was left there, and the things he liked was gone. All right, and I said, this is fine. I gave the judgment to him. You know, what you think is fair, you do it. Because I would have divided it fairly, you know. I mean, half for him, half for me. Things I bought, there's a lot of things, flowers and such, spelt and things like this, you know, that I had bought that we didn't go halves on, so I took those. They don't bake anyway, okay, so they don't barely cook. I did it all for them for years, and I think that's the big impact of why things came down like they did. But he divided it. And he had it there, and he comes out at 10 in the morning and tells me, get this out. Well, by 1 o'clock is when I got the keys of this place, and we got out of there in time for me to actually cook, because I'm not that awful far away, but I'm in my own place now where it's safe. And there was a lot of threats and a lot of things took place that were bad, but he divided it. And she calls and talks about, you know, how I stole all their beans, and he's in the background, he didn't leave me one can of beans. And it's like, you're calling me on the Sabbath to curse me. You know, it's like, I didn't divide them. Everything that he told me to take, I took. And he came back later and knocked on my door and even thanked me for cleaning the counter, because she had been throwing a fit about it all morning till he came and got me to clean it up. Okay? And I know there were certain pastas missing. I didn't get no oatmeal. Okay? And that's what I make my cookies with, is oatmeal. I didn't get none of that. Okay? So there's a lot of things that I didn't get. And the cupboards were bare, and I know he had taken his food off, and, you know, because he's paranoid I'm going to steal it like he did to me. And that's what goes on in politics today from what I see in the world, you know. They're always saying, he done this, he done that, you know, Russian spies, and, you know, he hasn't done it. And they're saying he did because they're the ones that got the Russian spies and such they're in collusion with. The sins they're involved with, they try to put on to you, if you're hearing what I'm saying, and there's a sword dividing. They're doing these things to you, and I'm blaming you for doing it to them, and it never took place with them. And here they're saying I'm stealing their beans. No, he told me to get it off the counter and even thanked me for doing so. That's what he left me, and I didn't get, what a lot of the stuff that would have been right for a righteous division, but that's all on his head. And when I left, it's like, great, this is it. Man, she called me up last night telling me I stole their beer from the refrigerator. I'm like, but look, lady, thing is, I didn't even go into the refrigerator because he apparently, or you apparently, left a big old loogie right on the edge of the sink and left it there. Didn't clean it up, you just left it there. Nasty people. And with that in mind, I said, I'm not going to touch anything that's open in the refrigerator. And I'm not even going to open something to see if it is opened or not to divide. It's like I'm not going to do that because this is nastiness. I didn't even open the refrigerator door. I took out fish that my brother had got and caught himself lawfully and legally that he gave to me, and a couple pieces of moose. I took 2 chicken breasts. I says, all those other packages you see in there, a chicken and such, even a steak, I left for him and you. I only took what my brother gave me and just 2 chicken breasts. And I left it all for you as a gift because I'm to turn the other cheek. And she couldn't believe it. She thought I took all the chicken. it's like, oh my. She thought I cleaned them out because they was stealing my stuff, going into what I was going to move out, and they were taking items out. And you know what? The way I look at it, enjoy it. Enjoy it. I separated ourselves, okay? I forgive you, but just like Satan the devil, I forgive Satan, but I'm not going to invite her over for dinner. And I forgive him, and I don't want to badmouth anybody. So I'm going to be asking for you to take a look into the life of me for the last 3 years or so, give or take, October 8th, 2016 until present. And see if the things that I say can help you when they come. Because when our king comes into your life, it's with a sword to divide. So please, you need to judge righteously. And, I'm just going to explain another chapter in my life as it unfolded until present, to where I'm alone and completely joyous and complaint-free. I hope you tune in to be the judge, and we'll see you later. Shalom. I say shalom.